Hi everybody. So on Saturday I went to meet a friend, and after I'd met my friend I began to get into a crisis and it escalated quite quickly and I became very upset and very scared, and so I ended up going to A&E. And when I got to A&E it was quite horrible. I was waiting and I felt quite devastated and quite upset and I was very distressed. And I had a very long wait, quite a distressing wait in A&E. But when one of the nurses finally came to see me, we ended up having a really good conversation, and I thought I'd share some of that with you today. So she told me that she'd seen lots of people like me, lots of people going through a very similar thing to me, and people who she felt were quite similar to me in that they were very sensitive people, very emotional people, people who felt things a lot, who felt things really deeply and quite intensely, and that's happy things, love, joy, as well as sadness and despair and those really difficult feelings that happen. If you've got a diagnosis of BPD, you'll probably know what that feels like. And she said to me that when that negative, critical, despairing state comes over you, that although it's not a voice in the sense that you hear about people having auditory hallucinations or people hearing voices that seem to be like people inside their head talking or people outside of their own body talking, she said it can be viewed a bit like a voice or a bit like a person that takes over. And that really resonated with me because that's something I've been thinking about for myself and for my experiences too, because it is a bit like I get taken over by somebody. She said if you're a highly creative and imaginative person, like I am, that perhaps creativity and thinking about how you can view that state that comes over you or characterise it as some sort of a character or a thing. And that's something I've been doing quite a lot of lately. I think I've been doing it over the past few years, but I haven't been conscious of doing it, but I've been doing it more actively lately, and I thought I'd share that a little bit with you. So the character that I thought of, or the kind of face for the voice that I sort of get, I thought about characterising it as a crow. Let me find a picture for you. So here, it's kind of a crow when it happens, when those self-harm and suicidal thoughts come over. I thought it was a bit like having a bird come over me and like come down on me and kind of like start flapping at me and attacking me and sort of taking over me and like pecking at me. And the nurse said to me, when that happens, you can try to talk back to that. You can try and ask it questions, see what it wants. So here you can see I've put questions around. What do you want? Why do you attack me? Why do you try to isolate me? Why are you so cruel to me? Why do you tell me to die? Then I drew the crow again, and I thought about asking, are you frightened? You know, there must be a reason for this behaviour, for the attack, for the flapping at me and scaring me. There must be a reason for that. So I wrote, do you need help? Are you lost? Do you feel alone? Then I began to think about the crow possibly being in a cage. You know, let me fly, please let me out. I'm caged, don't cage me, I want you to set me free. So you can see this is a really kind of metaphorical and creative way of thinking about why I might go into those like suicidal and self-harming and very despairing states of mind, and those kind of like modes that take over me sometimes. And I've been trying to think about it in a more metaphorical way because it's really confusing for me and I don't really understand why it happens fully. I know a little bit, but I don't fully understand it. So I sort of started to make up almost conversations and stories about this bird. You know, the crow might be able to tell you something. What are you saying, crow? What do you want to say? Because sometimes it's screaming at me and I don't really understand what it wants or what it's trying to achieve. and quite often that gets me in a mess because I'm freaking out about what's happening, what's going on in my brain, and it's really, really scary. So I did a lot of drawings about the crow, and it's something I'm continuing to do. I know this sounds like almost a very wacky idea, a wacky thing to be doing, but I know that people who hear voices do this kind of thing sometimes, and that they find it helpful. So I'm trying to take a leaf out of the sort of hearing voices network and the people who talk back to their voices and who create a dialogue with their voices, and I'm trying to do that with BPD and my BPD states, and in the hope that it might shed some light and some clarity on what I'm actually experiencing and ways to manage that. Okay, thank you everybody.